everybody, I hope you're well. In case we've never met, my name is James, and you have just stumbled into the Project Success Cooking Certificate class. This is our last meeting of the trimester, although we will be back again next trimester. So in the fall, you can expect to see us again. Tonight, we are preparing Bahn Mi. Bahn Mi, in case you're not aware, is a type of Vietnamese sandwich. Usually it's made with pork, but we're not making it with pork, we're making it with chicken. And I want to talk a little bit about this sandwich before we get started. One of the things we've been focusing on since we started our online classes is how you can use staples in order to prepare a meal. And staples, as you all should know by now, if you've been following along, are foods that people might just keep in their pantries. But one of the things that I realized after a few classes like that is that you can't really assume what people keep in their pantries. There are some people who keep spaghetti in their pantry, some people who always have sweet potatoes. There are people who, no matter what, make sure that they always have rice noodles. Some people always have bananas. It depends upon what part of the world you're from and where your family's from. It depends upon your philosophy of cooking. So today we're going to cook something that was actually born of staples originally. Here's what I mean. So in the country of Vietnam, from the late 1800s to the mid 1900s, that country was colonized by France. Maybe you're from a country that at one point was colonized. This country, you could argue, is still colonized. However, it was officially colonized by the English for a long time, right? And was influenced as a result of that by English culture. Same thing is true in Somalia, which was colonized by Italy. So that's one of the reasons why there's so much pasta in Somali cooking. Well, in Vietnam, because they were colonized by the French, one of the things that was introduced to their cooking was this, the baguette. Mine's individually wrapped for some completely unnecessary reason. A baguette is it's usually a long loaf of bread. Like you can usually see it if you're watching like a romantic comedy, and for some reason, a dude goes shopping to show that he's such a good guy. He'll be carrying like a brown paper sack and he's got like a long loaf of bread sticking out of it. That's a baguette, which is a traditional French loaf. This is a demi-baguette, or a half baguette, a short baguette. And so they were introduced to Vietnam by the French. So one of the things that the Vietnamese then did is they were like, okay, your long bread's fine, but we already have a lot of staples that we're used to cooking with here. And so in North Vietnam, one of the things that was done right away is that a kind of Vietnamese pate was used on the bread. Pate is a French word, but there was a Vietnamese concoction that was a lot like pate. In South Vietnam, though, they started to put other kinds of meat in there. They would put a lot of pickled things in there as well, which is stuff that the French probably wouldn't have thought of putting in a baguette. They usually just butter or certain kinds of cheese, you know. So they took something that was the result of being colonized and they mixed it together with something that was from their own culture, and that yielded the Bahn Mi, which is now a sandwich which is known all over the world and which you can get a lot of here in Minneapolis. One of my favorite restaurants, Quang, has a fantastic Bahn Mi, but that's not the only one. There's a lot of great Vietnamese cooking right here in Minneapolis, and a lot of those restaurants are delivering and serving takeout right now. So what I'm going to do is today, after we're finished preparing our Bahn Mi, I'm going to get on the Project Success Launchpad site, and I'm going to list a bunch of the Vietnamese restaurants here in Minneapolis. I'll let you know if they're open or closed for delivery and takeout so you can compare your Bahn Mi to the ones that they prepare. But one of the things I want to talk about that's a little bit different today is you heard me mention that we're not going to be using pork, we're going to be using chicken. There's a couple of reasons for that. One of them is because when we avoid using pork, that means that more of our students can cook along with us. The other reason is that when you cook using chicken, the marinade that we're preparing to go on the chicken soaks in a lot faster, which is awesome. I'm realizing right now that a lot of my fresh ingredients are probably still in the refrigerator, so you know, from time to time I'm going to have to dash in there and grab them. Let's talk about the ingredients we're going to use. Today we are going to be using, I'm using these white turnips. I wanted to use daikon, which is a kind of white radish. It kind of looks like a very fat white carrot. However, I was not able to get daikon at all the grocery stores that I went to. You may be using a white turnip like me. You might have a daikon. You might have a daikon and a turnip. If you're a meal kit student, maybe you have one or the other. I don't know. So that's one thing we're going to be using. We're also going to be using matchstick carrots. So one of the nice things about preparing this particular meal is that carrots that are cut into what some people call matchsticks, what other people call julienne, they sometimes take a long time to prepare if your knife skills aren't awesome, or if you don't have what they call a mandolin slicer. So you can buy matchstick carrots already cut that way. In fact, that's how I usually buy my carrots, because I have to confess, unless they're cut like that, I am not the biggest carrot fan in the world, and so I just buy them in bags like that and I use them in whatever I'm cooking. I'm bothered by holding this in my hand, I'm throwing it away. So we've already talked about the carrots, we've talked about the daikon, we've talked about the turnip. So let's talk about some of the other ingredients that we're going to use. Today's meal has a lot of flavor in it. It has sweet flavor, it has hot flavor or spicy flavor, it has salt, it has acid, it's got 2 different kinds of heat that we're going to be using. We're really going to cover all the bases. There's sweetness as well. Did I mention sweetness? For the sweetness, we're just using good old-fashioned granulated sugar. That's going to go into the brine for the pickle. It's also going to go into the marinade that we're making for the chicken. We're using white vinegar. That's a source of acid. We're going to be using some toasted sesame seed oil. We're using cinnamon. We're using ground cloves, red pepper. The only reason why we're using cayenne pepper or red pepper and ground cloves is because we don't have Chinese 5-spice. I wasn't able to find it at Cubs. So what can you do? We're using soy sauce. We're using hoisin sauce. We're using something that I've never used before, maji seasoning, which is going to go on our bread. And I'm psyched to see how that tastes. I think it's going to have sort of like an umami flavor, which I'm all about. I'm from England, and I like me some Marmite, which is straight up umami. I also like sweet soy sauce, which is umami as well. We're using honey. I've got this little bear guy. Maybe yours looks like that, maybe it doesn't. We're using ketchup, y'all. We're using ketchup. Ketchup goes in Bahn Mi. Let's talk about the tools we need. Not a ton of tools, a couple of mixing bowls. We're going to need a cutting board. I'm using 2 different kitchen knives. You can use 1. We're going to use a skillet. You can use a grill pan. You can also use a barbecue if you want to do that. I'm going to use an oven. And speaking of which, I'm going to preheat the oven before I forget to 325 degrees. Why? Because one of the things that makes a banh mi is the crispiness of the baguette. So you could make one that has like a real soft baguette like I've got right now, but I think I would prefer to have it the way that I would get it at a restaurant, which is if you put it in the oven for a few minutes, it crisps up the outer layer, and then it makes the whole experience better. Okay, let's start cooking. I'm going to clap a lot today. I'm in a clappy kind of mood, I guess. We're going to start out by julienning the turnips or the daikon. Okay, so if you're using turnips, and sure, if you're using the daikon as well, we're going to peel the turnip. I'm using a vegetable peeler for this. You could use a knife. I'm going to do it just right in my sink here because I do not have my organics bag nearby. Turnips are oftentimes covered by a layer of wax. Mine is. You're going to want to get that layer of wax off. You don't want the wax on, you want the wax off. That's very important. Karate Kid reference. And once we are finished peeling the turnip, we will have gotten rid of not just the wax, but also the outer layer of the turnip. This is probably easier if you're using the daikon, because a daikon, like I said, is like a long, fat, carrot-looking thing. And so you can just go like this, do one of these kinds of gestures, and I can't do that. What I am doing, I'll show you how I'm doing in case you've never used a vegetable peeler, or maybe you use it differently than me. What I do is I put my thumb on the base, and then I peel it like this. So I pull it back towards me. So I sort of allow it to gain purchase, you might say, or get a grip up at top here, and then I just scrape it along here, getting rid of the wax and that outer layer of turnip. There we go. That one's peeled. I'm going to do 2 of them because what I read in this recipe is that we want the daikon, or we want the turnip, to outnumber the carrot 2 to 1. We want 2 to 1, mostly daikon, not as much carrot. If you really like carrot and you don't like daikon, then you can do more carrot than daikon. You can do all carrot. One of the things that is true about Bahn Mi and about most cuisine really, but certainly about Bahn Mi and about Vietnamese cuisine is you can kind of do it however you want to do it. This recipe comes to us by way of Andrea Nguyen, who is a chef who shares her recipes in cookbooks, and in this particular case was Vice magazine. And she specifically talks about how much improvisation happens in Vietnamese food and how people kind of do what they want to do. And a banh mi is the epitome of that because you can choose any acid, any salt, any fat, any heat. You can do it any way you want to, and nobody will be mad at you. Well, I certainly won't. Okay, I've got 2 peeled turnips now. I'm going to cut off the end of one of those turnips for the same reason that I cut off the end of anything that is round and I'm about to chop, because I don't want it to roll around on the cutting board. So now that I've got my flat end, I'm going to place it on the flat end and I'm going to cut it in half. Did you notice that my turnip has sprouted? Check it out. It's because I had it in the sun for 1 day. 1 day and it already sprouted. I'm going to cut off that sprouting top. I don't want that. I got 2 halves like this, and they're flattened. So now what I'm going to do is, do I have seeds in there? I don't think so, no. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to chop these into slices, and I want them to be pretty thin. I am going to, the way I'm doing this is I'm holding the knife with the tip down and dragging, and I'm going to watch out for my fingers by using the claw technique. I really need to sharpen my knife, y'all. It's an interesting thing. A lot of times people feel like sharp knives are dangerous, but there's nothing more dangerous than a dull knife. Because what you do with a dull knife is you overcompensate with it, and it can slip and then chop your finger. Okay. So now I have pieces that are like this. They kind of are the width of like a McDonald's French fry. And I'm going to turn it now, and I'm going to turn these smaller pieces, and I'm going to try to make them into little matchsticks, like I mentioned before. This is not something that I've done a whole lot of, so I'm improvising as I go as well. I think what I might try to do is sort of fan some of them out like cards. Pick a radish, any radish, and I'm going, because then they're laying flat. Then I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to sort of use it like a lever. Let's see how that works. Looks okay. Yeah, not perfect, not bad. There we go. I think I'm going to do that with the whole thing. So again, I've got them fanned out like this, so that they stay in one place, and then I'm going to use my knife to sort of saw them. There's probably another way of doing it, but this is the way I'm doing it. I'm going to use my claw technique, making sure that my fingers are never in the way of the blade. The only thing that gets close to the blade is my knuckles. I'm not worried too much about perfectly shaped matchsticks. Maybe some people would, but that's not really a concern I have. I just want to make sure that I don't have big chunks. That's the main thing. Because if I have big chunks, it's going to get harder for the turnip or the daikon or whatever it is that you're working with here to be pickled. Because yes, folks, that's where we're headed. We are going to pickle some carrots, and we're going to pickle some daikon and turnips. So that may be confusing to some of y'all, because maybe when you think of pickles, you think of the things that you put in a hamburger bun, or maybe you think of the stuff that you put on top of a hot dog. Well, pickles in that form are really just cucumbers that have been sitting in brine, and then eventually they turn into whatever those things are. We are doing something similar here. We're going to be making a brine, and then we're going to place our turnips or our daikon and our carrots in the brine so that they pickle. So I'm taking my second half of my first turnip, cutting it into slices, and then I'm going to do that same thing again where I fan them out so I can cut them into matchsticks. Or, to use the julienne or the French word, to cut them julienne style. I did a little bit of reading and research about the colonization of Vietnam before we started today, because I was really interested in the way that happened. And like so many times in history, it is complicated. It's definitely true that the French took advantage of a lot of Vietnamese folks, but it's also true that a lot of Vietnamese folks entered into what they felt was a partnership with the French because they stood to gain monetarily. So it's not like they blundered into it, and it's not like they didn't know what was coming. It's more like there were some people who benefited and some people who definitely didn't. And I feel like that is something that happens in most times in history, including this one. Okay, so now we are turning these slices into matchsticks. And I'm seeing here that I'm getting enough from my one turnip that I may not do a second turnip. I like that I have a second one in case I want to use it for later on. But I may not do it right now. If you're interested in a great book about Vietnam, not about the French period, the great book about Vietnam, there's one called The Sympathizer. It's really interesting. There's a great audio book of it as well, which you can also check out if you want to. Won a bunch of awards a couple of years ago, and they are well deserved. And that book also shows how difficult it is in times of conflict to figure out how to feel and what side to take and all those sorts of things. Sometimes it's clear, sometimes it isn't. Okay, so here we go. We've got a whole bunch of matchsticked, is that a phrase? Matchsticked daikon here, or turnip. So we're going to take our, well, next what we're going to do is we're going to make our brine. As I said, brine is something that you use to create a pickle. So we're going to do that now. We are going to take, let's see, oh no, we got to massage them first. I was excited about this part. So I'm going to take my turnip and I'm going to put it inside one of my mixing bowls. And now I need my carrots. So I'm going to get them from the fridge. Be right back. I brought back my everything else as well. We'll use those later. Here's my matchstick carrots. I'm going to cut into those. And I'm going to try to put in about half as many as I have daikon or turnip. Put those aside for now. Come back to them later. All right, so now we're going to add a teaspoon of salt, and I'm not going to measure this out. I know how much a teaspoon looks like. It's about like this. That's about a teaspoon. That's about a teaspoon. I'm going to dump that in there. And then we need about 2 teaspoons of sugar. So I'm going to use my sugar dish here. I've got a little spoon that I use for my tea. 1, 2, and then we get to roll up our sleeves and do a little bit of work. Okay. Hopefully you've already washed your hands. Now I'm going to take all of these vegetables and I'm going to massage them. I'm literally going to, it's like I'm washing someone's hair. Or maybe you don't wash your hair like that. Maybe it's like, what else is this like? It's like kneading dough. I don't want to, I'm not trying to squeeze them so that they break or anything like that. The way that Andrea Nguyen puts it is that I don't want to, if I've had a rough day at work or school, I'm not using this as an opportunity to take it out on some poor vegetables. But what I am trying to do is massage them so that I have a little pool of water at the bottom. And eventually we're trying to make the daikon flexible or bendable. Let's see how we're doing with that. Yeah, it's pretty flexible, pretty bendable. That'll do. Kind of looks a little bit like a coleslaw right now. Okay, now it's time to make the brine. So I'm going to take a half a cup of sugar this time. And as I've mentioned in previous episodes, I do not have a cup or a half cup measure. I just have a single cup measure that I have to use for this. So let's see, it's half of a cup of sugar. That's a lot of sugar, holy moly. Okay, and it goes, wow, 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 look at all that. I'm not a cook who uses a lot of sugar, so that seems like a lot to me. My grandma, who grew up in Missouri, used a ton, but that wasn't usually my scene. We're gonna put in some water, so not that much. Let's call that a quarter cup. We're going to put in 1 1/4 cup of white vinegar. That's this stuff here. So let's grab my cup measure again. You can use a fluid cup measure if you want to. They do the same thing, so I don't really care. There we go, there's a cup. And we want another quarter cup on top of that. Not that much. I'll go through these measurements again in just a moment. So yeah, that's all of it. So I'll go through that again now. That was a half a cup of sugar. That was about a quarter cup of water. It was 1 1/4 cup of vinegar. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab either a fork or a whisk, whatever you happen to have around. And we're going to whisk it until it's clear. We want the sugar to mix into the vinegar and the water. Maybe a little more. Because we want these ingredients to soak into our daikon and our carrots. So now we're going to take these vegetables and we're going to add them to the brine. Our goal is to make sure that the brine covers the vegetables. Now you can do this as far in advance as you want. She advises letting them sit for an hour. So ours may not be as pickled as hers are. Andrea Wynn recommends leaving it for 60 minutes or putting it in a jar and leaving it overnight or leaving it as long as you have time for. It's not like you can really over pickle them, that I know. Maybe you can, I don't know. All right, I'm gonna set that mixing bowl aside. I'm gonna use it later on. I'm gonna make sure that my daikon or my turnip and my carrots are covered by the brine. Perf. Should look like this. It's like a stew of orange and white. Okay, so it's like basically it's like it looks like the Netherlands soccer team uniform. Okay, I'm gonna place it over here, and we're gonna let that sit. And I'm gonna quickly check in and see if anybody has any questions or comments. I'm going too fast. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I will go back and I'll go over some of the things that we've been doing. If this is your first time cooking with us, one of the things you should know is that I will definitely make sure that I post this video on the Launchpad page, so you'll get to go through it again. Let's talk about what we've done so fast. We have cut some turnips or some daikon, julienne style, so like matchstick style. Then what we did was we took about half as much of our matchstick carrots, and we added them to the same bowl. Then we took a mixing bowl, and in the mixing bowl we made a brine, and the brine was half a cup of sugar, and it was about a quarter cup of water, and then 1 1/4 cup of white vinegar. We mixed those together until the brine was clear. In the meantime, we massaged our daikon or our carrots with 2 teaspoons of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, until we saw a little bit of water cooling at the bottom, and we noticed that the the daikon or the turnip, you could bend it without it breaking. And we added all the vegetables to that brine, and then we made sure that all the vegetables were covered by the brine, and we set them aside. So that's everything we've done so far. Let's take a look and see what's happening next. We are going to start working with our chicken thighs, which are still in my fridge. I'll be right back. Okay, here are mine. The reason why we use chicken thighs for this is that they are very flavorful, and they can be opened so that they are flat, which makes them cook faster. Also, generally speaking, here's a pro tip. Chicken thighs are cheaper than chicken breast, which is interesting because for me, it tastes much, much better. But, everybody likes different stuff. And, you want to use a chicken breast for certain things and not use it for other things. Okay, so here we go. I've got a chicken thigh. I'm going to pull it out. And you can decide how much you're going to prepare today. Notice whether you can open it all the way. If there's something that's keeping you from opening it all the way, then maybe you'll make a little cut so that it can butterfly out. You can do that on your cutting board. Here's another chicken thigh. Yep, so in this one, I can't open it all the way. So I've got to make a little cut that will allow me to unfold the whole thing. Okay, and I'm going to do a third one, but that's all I'm going to do for now because I'm only preparing sandwiches for myself tonight. Maybe you are preparing food for your whole family, in which case you may want to cook more chicken than me. Or maybe you just want to save some of that chicken and cook it later. Okay, there we go. So we've opened up the chicken. After you handle raw chicken, you want to wash your hands. I have apple-scented dish soap that I'm washing my hands. Recommended if you want to smell like fake apples. Sometimes you just want to smell like a fake apple, So this kitchen is now flooded with the smell of fake apples, and we are ready to move on to the next step. We're going to create what they call a marinade. A marinade is a sauce that you soak something in. So it's interesting, a brine is kind of like a marinade, only in the case of the marinade, we're covering a meat with it, and usually it is something that you're about to put on heat, so we're not going to cook those pickles, right? The brine is pickling the vegetables, but in this case, the marinade is what we're going to be using to flavor the meat. Here's what we need. We need a clove of garlic. So I'm going to grab a clove of garlic right here. I'm very tempted to use garlic powder tonight. I'm just not really in the mood to. I'm so lazy with garlic, I just don't like it. I love garlic, don't get me wrong. I just don't like mincing garlic. It always feels like such a pain. Because look at all this little peepery skin that always comes off that I gotta deal with and sweep up later on. But there we go, I got a good size one there. There's my clove of garlic. I've got that purple garlic that for a while was all I could get in the stores here. I'm gonna use a different cutting board for this. I don't want to do it on the same one as my chicken. And just like usual, I'm going to cut off the top and the bottom of my clove of garlic. Sweep that aside. Then I'm going to take the flat of my knife and I'm going to smash it. Then I'm going to peel off the skin. And I'm going to mince the garlic. So that means cutting it very small. And in this case, because we're making a marinade, we really do want it small. Sometimes we leave it a little bit bigger if we're going to be adding it as a flavoring ingredient in a sauce that we're cooking. Or if it's part of a group of aromatics like onion and ginger and stuff like that we use to begin, like a pasta sauce or something, then it doesn't really matter then how small you chop it. Especially if you're using a really hot oil, because it turns into charcoal. But in this case, I've minced it up pretty small, because it's going to be part of a sauce that I'm going to rub on some chicken. All right, I'm going to put that in the mixing bowl that is now empty. And next we have cayenne pepper. So I love heat in my food. We've talked about this before, but the heat is not really the point of what I'm doing here. So I'm not going to put in a ton of cayenne pepper. I'm just going to put in a pinch of cayenne. I'm putting in more than most people would. There we go. It's about like that. If you really like your food hot and you know that everybody else in your house does too, add more. I'm going to add some cinnamon. You really don't want a ton of cinnamon in here. It's just a pinch of cinnamon. That's it. Oh, look, this is a fresh cinnamon. I haven't opened this yet. Just a pinch. Oh, that's way too much. There we go, about like that. Just a pinch. Literally, you could take your fingers and go like this and pinch it and throw it in. That would be acceptable. Next, we have ground cloves. Ground cloves. If you don't have cinnamon in your meal kit, it may be because they ran out at the store. It's not essential. Okay, I just added, oh gosh, why do ground cloves always smell so amazing? Okay, I've added the ground cloves. Now I'm going to add in some ketchup. So I'm going to take, let's see, how much do they want? A tablespoon of ketchup. It's kind of weird to measure out a tablespoon of ketchup, but I'm going to do it. Okay, did I just get ketchup all over me? No, because I'm a pro. All right, I've got my tablespoon measure, and let's squirt some ketchup in there. Oh my gosh, I have a heavy ketchup user in my household. And so, oh yeah, we got some more in there. That one's just about out. Here we go. Gotta take out this paper thing, because heaven forbid, we don't have enough paper things protecting ketchup from us and the rest of the world. Okay, rid of the paper thing. Okay, paper thing's gone. All right, finally, ready to measure out a tablespoon of ketchup. I'm shaking it first because you know what I'm doing. You don't shake your ketchup first, you get a lot of that gross liquid. Did you see that one everywhere? You get a lot of gross liquid. I want the gross liquid. Okay, there we go. There's my tablespoon of ketchup. I probably could have done that by eye, but something in me told me I should be precise about my ketchup measurements. We're going to do hoisin sauce. Hoisin sauce is a sweeter, a sweeter sauce. We're putting in 2 tablespoons of that. Maybe you can hear the music that my neighbors are playing as they pull up at the intersection not by my house right now. There's one. I can't recognize the song right now. Sounds like Katy Perry or something, maybe? I don't know. Okay, 2 tablespoons of hoisin sauce. And we're not mixing anything together yet. I'm just putting it all in the bottom of the bowl. It looks a real mess, I can tell you. We're going to add 1.5 tablespoons of soy sauce. That's very precise, isn't it? Somebody really put a lot of thought into how much soy sauce we should have. So there's 1 tablespoon. And I'm just going to use that same thing so I don't have to do a bunch of cleaning later to measure out 1/2 tablespoon. So 1.5 tablespoons of soy sauce. I'll go through all of this again once I'm finished. 2 tablespoons of honey. So this is where all of the ingredients are coming in, really. It's this marinade that's going to make the chicken taste really good. 1 tablespoon of honey. And another tablespoon of honey. We got 2 tablespoons of honey. Okay, there we go. And then we need 2 teaspoons of sesame oil. I'm going to do that by eye. I don't want to bother with it. So here we go. 1 teaspoon. 2 teaspoons. That'll do. And I think that's everything in the marinade. So let me go through all of those ingredients again. We had 1 clove of garlic minced. We had a pinch of cayenne pepper. We had a pinch of cinnamon. A pinch of cloves, great ground cloves. You can't really pinch the regular kind. We had a tablespoon of ketchup. We had 2 tablespoons of hoisin sauce, 1.5 tablespoons of soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of honey, and 2 tablespoons of sesame oil. It looks like an unholy mess. Look at that horrible grossness that is in there right now. None of it's mixed together. So we are going to do the job of mixing it together. I'm going to use this sugar spoon that I had earlier. And I'm sloshing it around at the bottom of my mixing bowl because I want to make sure that I get all of those delicious ingredients that I added. I don't want to miss out on some invisible oil. Well, it smells good already. Sure, it sounds good too. You can always tell a good sauce by how it sounds. Okay, let's see what this tastes like. Whoa. Wow. Oh my gosh. That is good. That is very sweet. Woo-wee! That is very sweet. It's too sweet for me. So I'm adding a bit more cayenne pepper to it to balance the sweetness. Woo! That was very sweet. I felt like I just ate a whole packet of Kool-Aid. Okay, let's try that. Better. Still really sweet. Okay. So next what we're going to do is we are going to add our chicken to the bowl. And just like we did when we were massaging our vegetables, we are going to massage our chicken with the marinade. We're really going to get good and gross up in here. Because what we want is that marinade not just to cover the chicken, we want it to get into the chicken. That is so gross, y'all. That is super gross. It is a really disgusting feeling. I feel this way anytime I'm working with meat and marinade. But what are you going to do? A chef has to make sacrifices in the kitchen. Okay. Oh, so gross. Okay, I'm going to wash that off. Get my honey out of the sink. Get your honey out of the sink. What does that mean? I don't know, but I think it's a #1 hit, y'all. Please, somebody sample that and then put it in a song and then put it on the rock and roll charts, and then I'll take all of the money. That would be great. Okay, so there we go. We've got our chicken marinated. We're going to set it aside for a little while because we want that marinade to work into the chicken. I'm going to get it out of the way. Go over here, chicken. Hang out with your friend, Pickle. Okay, so folks, let's see. Next, we are going to prepare the other things that are going to go in the sandwich. So I am going to have some cucumber. Wait, James, is that a regular cucumber? No, sir. This is an English cucumber. What is the difference between an English cucumber and an American cucumber? Well, it's all in the dialect. So an American cucumber, when you ask it a questions like, if you're sort of like, hey, cucumber, how was your day today? Then the cucumber will be like, well, James, thank you for asking me that. It was a pretty good day. But if you ask an English cucumber how its day was, it'll always say something like, I say, well, chap, it was an awfully good day. The weather was rather nice, and I got a bit of a suntan, and I went for a jog, and later on. So that's one way you can tell. Another way that you can tell is an English cucumber has no seeds. And I don't know about you, but I'm not eating cucumbers for the seeds, so you can take them out of there. I'm going to chop this fellow up. There's a couple of different ways you can chop a cucumber. I'm sure there are hundreds of ways you can chop a cucumber. Some folks chop it straight up and down, like choppity chop, 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 right? And then you're going to end up with cucumbers that look like they are coins. However, you can also cut them on the diagonal, which I like when I'm cutting them for a sandwich. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. So you can see here, I cut myself sort of like a longer slice there by turning my knife diagonally and slicing down. I'm going to do the same thing a few times here. If you don't like the skin of a cucumber, then you don't have to use that top slice. You can use the slices that come later. Some of these are of different levels of thickness. If I was doing this for like a chef test, I would fail. Thankfully, I'm not taking any chef tests. No chef tests for me. Okay, there we go. That's plenty of cucumber for my one sandwich I'm going to be making today. I'll set it aside because I will be making more sandwiches for myself later on. Next, we're going to chop up some jalapenos. You get to decide how spicy you want your jalapeno to be. How? The seeds make a jalapeno pepper spicy, so you can keep in as many or as few of the seeds as you like. If you're going to keep in all of them, then you can just chop it up like a cucumber and then keep all of the seeds that come your way. If you don't want that, then you can. There are tons of ways of getting the seeds out of a jalapeno pepper. I'm trying to decide how I will do it today because I'm making a sandwich. I think what I'm going to do today is I'm going to use a method that uses a smaller knife. You can use a knife like the one I'm holding now, or you can use a butter knife. What I sometimes do is I will just cut the cheeks straight off of the pepper, leaving nothing but the husk and the seeds. But I actually want some of the husk in this. So I'm going to cut the inside of the pepper out. Go. I also want disc shapes. I'm not looking for the same sort of shape that I just cut my cucumber in. Okay, so now I have a hollow pepper. Hello, hollow pepper, and I'm going to rinse it out. I'm also going to take my finger, sort of wash it around in there to get the seeds out. And now I have a completely hollow jalapeno pepper. Hollow jalapeno pepper. Hello, hollow jalapeno. And I'm going to wash off my fingers, because if you don't do that, and then you touch your eyes will burn. And I'm going to slice up my jalapeno pepper into some little discs, which I will later put in my sandwich. That'll do. Okay, now at this point you get to decide what kind of fat you want to use in your sandwich. One source of fat is mayonnaise. That's one that's put in Bahn Mi all the time. Another one is just straight up salted or unsalted butter. Another one is avocado. I'm going to use two sources of fat. I'm going to use butter, and I'm also going to use avocado because I love avocado. I'm going to check and see if my avocados are ripe. You can usually tell by giving them a squeeze. And you want them to give, but not too much, right? This one feels pretty good to me. Let's see if I get lucky with it. So I'm going to cut into my avocado, like this, like the sword in the stone. And I'm going to cut all the way around the stone of the avocado. You cannot cut all the way through an avocado because they have that big stone in the center. And my goal is to cut a line all the way around that meets itself again. And then you should be able to go twist like this. And now you have two halves of an avocado, one which is ready to go because there's no pit in it or no stone in it, and the other one which has a stone. You can get the stone out of your avocado, and this is a good test of whether your avocado is actually ripe or not, by taking your knife and cutting into the stone, then twisting it. And just then my stone split, which tells me that my avocado is not very ripe, because ordinarily it would just twist and pull out of there. So I'm in two minds about whether I'm going to use this avocado. We shall see. If your avocado is not giving up its stone yet, then I wouldn't even bother with it. Just wait until it ripens. You can cover it with plastic wrap and put it in the fridge, so that way it doesn't turn brown, and it will still ripen. Oh, let's get that stone out of there. That was tough. Okay. I may not put the avocado in my sandwich yet. We'll see. Okay. So next, what we're going to do is we are going to cook that chicken. Now, ideally, we would want to marinate the chicken a little bit longer than what we just did, but we're cooking live, and so that means that sometimes you have to do things a little bit more quickly than you want to. So I'm going to take my skillet here, and I'm going to turn it up to a high heat. I swear this happens every week. One of my burners doesn't work while I'm trying to cook pre-roll. There we go, it's on. Then I'm gonna take some olive oil, or you can use butter if you want to. Or you can use vegetable oil, or you can use peanut oil, or you can use any kind of cooking oil you want to. I'm gonna let that heat up a little bit, and then I'm gonna grab my chicken. Now, we just got that where we're getting this skillet pretty hot here. So you're gonna wanna be very careful at this point, not just because of the hot skillet. Like right now, I have the handle of my skillet out of the way, which is a good thing. But also because when you add the meat to hot oil, it's probably gonna start to spit, and I don't want that. So I'm actually gonna bring my heat down just a little. She really wanted it hot. That's, I think, possibly because she was cooking it on a grill pan, which I'm not doing, because I actually have opinions on grill pans, and we can talk about them at some later point. Here we go. We're gonna use tongs for this if you happen to have them. If you don't have tongs, you can use just a kitchen fork would also work. You just have to be a bit more careful. Okay? Now what I want to do is take my chicken, and remember how we butterflied it before? So it was spread out evenly. You want to do the same thing on the pan, because that'll make it cook more quickly and more evenly. Oh my gosh, this is going to be good. I'm going to put the rest of my marinade away. I might use it later. And if you're on Instagram, then I'm going to show you what my cooking chicken looks like. Okay, flip this. You don't want to just see my face, I'm pretty sure. There we go. Here's my cooking chicken. That's what it looks like. Let me grab my tongs again. I'm going to cook each side for about 4 minutes. It's going to be very tempting to flip your chicken a lot while you're cooking it. A lot of times people do that if they're feeling impatient, but it's really just a good idea to let it sit. After about 4 minutes, we're going to flip it over and cook it on the other side. Typically, you can cook the other side about a minute less than you cook the first side. Why? Because your pan is hotter. And so when your pan is hotter, you don't have to cook it quite so much. Also, there's a pretty good chance that you cook more than halfway through on the first side. Just going to make sure that I have these spread out as much as I want. Isn't it interesting how the marinade has already really colored the chicken? Okay, there it is. I'm going to put the camera back on the stand again because there's some other stuff we're going to work on. Look. Here I am, everybody. Walking through the kitchen. It's so crazy. Okay, we're going back on the stand. There. Is that good? Maybe turn it a little bit. There we go. Everybody on YouTube Live just watched me carry a phone across the kitchen, and that was probably not very interesting. So my apologies to our YouTube audience. Okay. So now that we have our chicken cooking, we are going to throw our, or we're not going to throw it, we're going to put our bread in the oven. So I'm just going to take my one demi baguette, half baguette. I'm going to put it right on the grill. You can put it on a cookie sheet or something like that if you want to. I'm not going to. You can use an oven glove to do this. I'm just going to pop it in there real quick like this and let it sit. I'm not going to forget about it, though. I do have a tendency to forget about things in the oven, so I'm going to set a little timer for 5 minutes, and we'll check it after that. Here we go. All right, where are we at? Let's see. So next what we're going to do is we're going to take our cilantro. Where'd you go, cilantro? There you are. Mine's in a little package like this. Maybe yours doesn't look like this. Maybe yours is just like a bunch of cilantro. That's what I prefer, but this is what they gave me at the store. And you're just going to put it in whatever form you wanted it. Maybe you don't like the leafy texture of cilantro, in which case you might want to mince it. which is something we've done in the Project Success Institute a whole bunch. Maybe you're fine with the leafy texture, and in which case you really just have to peel it up with your fingers and then put it inside of your sandwich when the time comes. That's what I'm gonna do. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm wondering if I washed my cutting board before I put the vegetables on. I don't recall. Typically not a good idea to chop your vegetables on the same surface that you had raw meat on. If you made that mistake, then you may want to give your vegetables a rinse. That's what I'm about to do. I'm gonna check on my chicken. That's looking good on one side, so I'm gonna flip it. Okay, and the way that I've got it set up right now is that the chicken will probably be done at the same time as my bread is done. Awesome. So I'm going to take my vegetables and I'm going to put them in a colander. This is a colander. These are the vegetables that are going in the sandwich, and I'm going to give them a rinse. Because I don't like the idea that they were on a cutting board that I was using to chop raw meat. Now I'm going to wash my colander, or wash my cutting board. I'm going to wash my raw meat now with a soap and a dish wand. Gross. Soapy meat. That's what they call me in college. That would be a weird nickname. Okay, so so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to drain our pickle, and we're going to use the same cutting board that we just used to rinse our vegetables. I shall return. Here's my pickles. Let's see what they taste like. They taste fantastic. Wow. I bet they would taste even better if I left them for longer. I'm kind of tempted to save that brine. I think what I'm going to do, instead of using my colander, because I want to use that brine for another batch, is I'm going to take another bowl. And I'm going to use my tongs to just fish out my pickle and put it in this bowl. Make it a little bit wetter, but I'm okay with it. I can sort of squeeze it with the tongs too to get some of the vinegar and the water out. That's definitely enough for one sandwich. You might be making 2 or 3 sandwiches, in which case maybe you want to take it all out, but that's way more than I need for just one sandwich. Okay, so I've got my pickle ready. I've got my cucumber. I've got my jalapenos ready. And at this point, you may want to think about like what fat you're going to use. Are you going to go for the avocado? Or are you going to go for the butter? Are you going to go for the mayonnaise? Completely up to you. I'm going to check on my bread. I would recommend using either the tongs you've been using, or even safer would be to use some oven mitts. I'm going to use my tongs just because I want to be quick here. There we go. Yep, now it's kind of crusty on the outside. I'm going to turn off my oven. Turn off your oven if you're done with your bread. And it sounds like my chicken is also done. Let's check it out. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to place my chicken someplace else. I think I'll just grab a plate. Make sure you turn off the heat on your skillet. Here's what my chicken looks like. Fantastic. Got a bit of a char on that, which is really nice. Okay, I'm going to put that over here. And I'm going to start to prepare the sandwich. Now, I want to be careful that I'm not working with this bread when it's too hot. If I do, then putting mayonnaise or butter on it, it's just going to instantly melt that. So one of the ways you can actually help it to cool is by cutting it if it's cool enough to touch. Mine is. So if you have a bread knife, that's really better for this. I don't have a bread knife. I'm just going to use my kitchen knife here. And we're going to cut it in half. Don't do it like I'm doing it right now. Don't hold it in your hand because you could cut into the heel of your hand. Instead, you're going to place it down on your cutting board, sideways. It's kind of tricky to hold, but once you start, it'll go. If you have a serrated knife, as I say, like an actual bread knife, that's even better. There you go. Now you're not cutting all the way through it. You're cutting and leaving a hinge, like this. See how it's still attached? You can open it like a book. I'm reading the book of bread. And when it's open like this, then there's less chance of the heat being too much. In fact, a lot of my heat has already dissipated, and I can tell that the butter will melt a little bit, not too much. What Andrea did in the video is she scooped out some of the bread on the inside so there's room for more toppings. I think I'm going to try that. I've never done that before. Let's see, what should I use? Maybe I'll use my little knife like this. Let's give it a shot. So I'm sort of cutting a V into the bread, making a bit more room. That'll do. I'm a little worried that that's going to make it weak, but maybe it won't. A+ bread. Nice job, bread makers. Okay, here's what's next. We are going to take our fat, so that's the avocado, or that's the mayonnaise, or it's more than one, or it's the butter. Instead of using butter, I'm going to take some of my butter here and I'm going to spread it on both sides of the bread. You want to cover the entire thing. So the way that she put it is you want to be able to taste every ingredient in every bite. So if you're using mayonnaise, then you'll cover the whole thing. If you're using butter like I am, then you'll do the same thing, all the way out to the edges. And my breads actually come apart, so my hinge is broken. I think I read that bread too much. Read your bread. All right, so I don't know why I'm singing everything today. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our Maggi seasoning. Maybe this came in your meal kit, maybe it didn't. It's not at every grocery store. You're going to pop it open, and you're just going to sprinkle it in there. So she described it as being almost like Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock is I can't remember what school he is. He abstract impressionist anyway, but he took like a paint and he would splatter it on canvases from above. We're going to do the same thing with our Maggi here. Just splatter that on there. I'm putting a lot because I want to know what it tastes like. Go. If you don't have Maggi seasoning, then you can also use soy sauce. That's like a close flavor as well. Okay, so next it's the chicken. But we're not just going to take the whole chicken and just slap it in there. We're going to chop it up first. So, yikes, I'm running out of room here. I'm going to take a single chicken thigh. I'm going to grab my tongs. I'm going to put it on my cutting board. Let's see, that one looks really well done. And I'm going to take my kitchen knife, and this is cooled down to the point where I can touch it now. And I'm just chopping this into slices. Using the claw technique as best as I can. Again, it helps if your knife is sharp. Great. because the chicken goes in next. Oh, so if you're watching on YouTube Live, our Instagram video just ended, so I'm going to restart again here in just a moment. You can just skip past this part if you're watching the video later. Welcome back, Instagram. Sorry we lost you for a second. You didn't miss anything. As soon as I noticed that you went off, I stopped. So we just chopped up our chicken, and now we're going to add that to our sandwich. So I'm going to sort of plonk that in the space that I hollowed out. And it looks like I'm just going to show you 1/2 of my bread because the hinge fell apart. There we go. Looks like this. Next, we're going to add the cucumber, if you've got cucumber. So I'm going to put my cucumber slices there. Then the jalapenos. Perfect. Then we're going to add in, I feel like what we don't have here in here yet is the pickles. We're going to add the pickles. I actually feel like they should go before the cucumber. So I'm taking off my stuff because I want the pickles to go on top of the chicken. I think that would be better. I'm going to put in a lot of the pickles because to me that's a big part of what makes a banh mi taste like a banh mi is when you have that sweet crunch on top of the chicken. Now here come my cucumbers and my jalapenos. And then I'm going to grab a few cilantro leaves. Not a ton. Just about like that much. Put that on top. And close it up. And then I'm going to really push that down. Whoa, there we go. Make it compact. I'm going to take my kitchen knife and I'm going to chop it in half. And then this is what it looks like on the inside of mine. There we go. I'm going to give this a taste. Let's see what it's like. Mmm. Oh, yeah. I can't believe I made that. That turned out really well. Here are some things I think I would do differently and some things that I really like. I really like that Maji seasoning. I don't have anything else in my kitchen that tastes like that. And that is that is a thing that really says Bahn Mi to me. Bahn Mi to me. I think that if I were doing this again, and I will do this again, I would use mayonnaise instead of using the butter. Because I like that sort of tanginess, and I want more of that. I am going to try it with the avocado later, but I don't think my avocado is ripe enough yet. Okay, so I'm just going to quick go over to the Instagram here and see if anybody who's tuned in has any questions. I'll give you a moment to write some. I'll take a look at YouTube as well. Elsa says, from what I can remember, London Byerly's has a free knife sharpening program where you can give them your knives and they will sharpen them. That's amazing. I think I may do that. That's great. Any questions here from the folks who are watching on Instagram? Doesn't look like it. All right, so you can expect that this video will be posted within the next 45 minutes to hour. I'm going to eat my dinner first. But then what you can do even right now if you want to, if there are any steps that you missed, is you can go to our Project Success Project Success Launchpad, and there you'll see a video of Andrea Wynn preparing her Bahn Mi, which, as good as mine is, I bet hers is better. And she might have a few tips that will help you to get to the finish line. There's also the whole recipe right there that you can follow. If you were watching tonight, I want to thank you for that. We will be back again in the fall with more cooking certificate. If over the summer you're like, hey James, I really miss the cooking certificate. I have a lot of time in my hands. I want to learn some new recipes. Then just give me a shout, and maybe we'll figure something out. We have some cool ideas for what we're going to be doing in the fall, and maybe we can even try them out. That would be cool. I know that for some of you all, you graduated this past week. If you did, congratulations. For some of you all, you are finishing your last week of schoolwork, which might be particularly intense, especially given the 2 weeks that we are going through in Minneapolis, which of course are the result of a lot of other things, which may be on your mind right now. So if that's you, if that's the way you're feeling, and you're having difficulty concentrating on the things that you need to do in order to get to the end of the school year, I hope that you will feel comfortable reaching out and letting us know. I used to be an elementary school teacher, but I also trained on how to teach all of the subjects that y'all are learning right now in high school, and I would be really happy to provide any tutoring or just take a Zoom call where we can learn something together. I'd be happy to do that. If you want somebody to proofread your work for a final paper, if you need any support from Project Success with really anything that you're working on that right now, I hope that you will let us know, and we'll figure out how we can help. If we can't help you, we will figure out who can. We care about you. We're thinking about you all the time. It really sucks not to get to see you all every week right now, especially with what our city has been going through recently. So it will be wonderful to hear from you, even if it's because you're struggling with something and we have the opportunity to help. Okay, I'll let it go at that. Thank you so much for cooking with me today. I hope you had a good time. I hope you made something delicious. If you didn't, I want to see pictures of it anyway. So send us a picture of your Bahn Mi. Send us a picture of you in the process of making a Bahn Mi. Send us a picture of your empty plate after finishing your Bahn Mi. We want to see all that. Thanks, everybody. We miss you. We love you. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.